Hi Hermits, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dara and today we are going to go shopping together, but we are going to go digital shopping so that we can do it in the comfort of our pajamas with a nice cup of tea and a packet of biscuits and still pick up some great new books. So if you are a Kindle user, you will probably know that at the start of every new month, Amazon refreshes all of their deals. So they have like kind of celebration related deals occasionally, so like Mother's Day, Christmas, things like that. They have a daily deal where a handful of random books will be discounted, but then they also have their monthly deals where a whole bunch of bestsellers are reduced to about £1 each. So I thought it would be fun to go through those new deals and just see if there's anything that takes my fancy. I'm also going to pick my Amazon first read for the month too. So if you have Amazon Prime, you get access to one new release every single month for free. So we're going to have a look at what's available today and just pick a few new great reads. I do love doing this at the start of a month just because it's a really great cost-effective way to purchase new books, which gives you that buzz. You know that buzz. If you're here watching this, you know that new book buzz. While also keeping it within budget, because books can get very expensive, especially when it's so easy to purchase them with like a one click. So I do try and restrict myself to only buying Kindle books that are reduced to about 99p. I think the most I'll ever spend on a book is like £2.50 if it's an ebook. So that's probably what keeps my bank account reasonably healthy. Anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna switch things around and start sharing my screen so that we can start doing some shopping together. Okay, so I have Amazon open. I just clicked on Kindle books, got my cup of tea, got my blanket, got my dog. We are ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and select all Kindle deals. And then you can see how, we've got the daily deals right here, but we're going to ignore those for now and just go for the monthly deals. And all I'm going to do is scroll through all of the pages here and create a new tab out of anything that piques my interest. So the Paper Palace, I've actually heard a few people talk about recently because I know it was on the long list for the Women's Prize. American Dirt, no thank you. Anxious People, no. Frederick Backman just doesn't appeal to me for some reason. I know everybody loves him, but never spoken to me. You will notice that there are quite a lot of Kindle Unlimited books on this list. I'm just going to ignore those because I have a Kindle Unlimited account, so I can just borrow those for free at any point. There's nothing in particular that I'm looking for this time. Sometimes I have like a real, really general sort of vibe of what I want to purchase, but I'm just open to whatever deals are available this month. So let's keep going. The Casanova, I read the first book in that series recently. It was so much fun, but because it is on Kindle Unlimited, I'm gonna just borrow it on there. I don't feel like there's any benefit to owning it personally. Dan Brown, I know that's another really hyped author that people have loved, but not really for me. I've never been that drawn to his books. Welcome to Your Life. I actually watched a video this morning where somebody was talking about this book. I think it was Lauren. Let's just open the tab for now and we can go and have a little look afterwards. The Rose Code, I actually own that. I need to read that. I've read the first few chapters and really, really enjoyed it. I don't know why I stopped, to be honest. I think I just got distracted by something else, but it was really, really good. Um, this is a book that I want to read. It's on my like library wish list because they have the audio book available in my library. And yeah, that sounds really fun. Basically, it's about a woman who I don't know if she loses her husband or something and has a great time at the funeral, so she just starts going to all of these random funerals of like for people that she doesn't know, and it just looks like it's going to be funny. Oh, I want to read this. I got that from the library, like a physical copy from the library last year. And I read a couple of chapters and it was very beautiful. I just wasn't in that kind of mood because it was very like slow, pretty writing. And I was in one of those moods where I just needed to be gripped. So I didn't finish it. But it is definitely something that I do really want to read. Radio Silence. I recently read Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I'm not familiar with the plot of this one, so let's open the tab and consider it. Let's see what we've got on this page. I love the covers of Claire Chambers' books. There always seems to be one of hers on this deals list. Let's have a little look at that one. And they've all got this like similar sort of illustrated, fruity front covers. I feel like they'd look beautiful on your physical bookshelves. I've never read anything by her, but I always think that her books sound really great. Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's memoir. I actually own that already. It's one that I just haven't got to yet. Sorry if you can hear my dog bouncing around. It happens. I love the cover of that one. It's very vibey. It gives me summer vibes, but it is on Kindle Unlimited. So if I'm drawn to it, I will pick it up on there. Karen Slaughter, I know she's someone that is beloved. I haven't read any of her books. And the Holly Black series, I know that is very, very popular, but again, I haven't read any of them. And even though I am sort of getting into fantasy now, I don't know that I'm ready to dive into all of the popular fantasy series. I'll deal with the ones that I've got on the go for right now. A lot of Anne Tyler's books really appeal to me, so let's have a little look at what that one's about. I've heard terrible things about Survive the Night. And I've heard terrible things from people that usually love that author. And I've read one of his most like preferred books and thought it was absolute trash. So if the super fans are not rating that one, then it's probably going to be even lower in my estimations. Oh, I own this book, The Final Arrival of Opal and Neb. It's one that I actually really want to read. It gives me very strong Daisy Jones and the Six vibes, which I've been craving recently. So I should probably give that a go. I've also heard wonderful things about this one. This is how you lose the time more. But I'm not a sci-fi girly. Mm-hmm. I've read one of Belinda Bowers' books before and really enjoyed that. I'm not sure if I'm in that kind of mood at the moment. I can always go back to it. As a general rule, I don't read animal books because I can't cope with animals dying. Not in films, not in books, not in reality. So I just avoid them to be on the safe side. This cover is speaking to me. I have no idea what this is, who this is, but it's pretty. So we're opening a tab. I've never read any Terry Pratchett. Is that something I should be giving a go? Let me know in the comments if you're a Terry Pratchett fan. Breasts and eggs. I have heard talk of this. I don't know what it's about, but I do remember a few people talking about being about to read it in for a book club. So I'll have a little look. I have been trying to read more internationally this year. So not necessarily diverse from a racial perspective, because I think I already have that split down, but trying to read books by authors who are not from the UK and the US, because I just tend to come across those books more. Not because it's a preference, I think it's more just an availability thing. They're the books that I've heard of, they're the books that I'm exposed to, so I just end up picking them up. And that's not really a good enough excuse when you have access to the entire internet and a capability for doing research. It just, yeah, no. Oh, this one is on my wish list. So that's a definite yes. The Secret Life of Bees. I remember really enjoying that a few years ago when I read it. It was sad, but it was good. The Island of Sea Women. I've read a couple of other books by this author and really and like thoroughly enjoyed them both. This one, for some reason, it doesn't speak to me in the same way. Driving Over Lemons. That is a really fun book. So it's about this couple who buy this sort of ramshackle farmhouse in Andalusia, which is where I used to live. And obviously, like they're English, very rural environment, surrounded by Spanish people. They can't really speak the language, and they're just trying to get their home up and running and their lives up and running. It was just really fun and relatable for me, obviously, because that was my experience too. The one thing that bugs me about these deals is when you see something from a series, it's usually like book 6 or book 8 or something like that. And I can get why that is the choice from a marketing perspective. But as a consumer, it's kind of annoying because I always want to start at the beginning. Okay, that one looks culty. So let's have a little look at that. Doesn't that look like such a summary cover? That's a maybe. Although I haven't necessarily had the best luck with traditionally published romance recently. But that's not to say that I'll like, never find one that I love. Because I've definitely loved traditional romance in the past. But I think because I've been reading more like KU books recently, I've just my change of my tastes have changed a little bit. Magic Lessons, I still need to read that. That's one of my favorite book series of all time. And I say that, but I've only read 2 out of 4. So maybe I shouldn't be saying that. Love some Kathy Reichs. She was one of the authors that got me into crime fiction. So there's always this soft spot in my heart for her books. And obviously, it inspired Bones, which is such a brilliant series. A House of Bells, that one jumps out at me. Or, I mean, that one is on Kindle Unlimited, so I can pick it up at a later date. But let's have a look what it's about anyway. This is one of my favorites. I love this book so, so much. It's so good. It's about this young woman who is really like trying to seek revenge for her best friend. So something happened to her best friend, and she holds this one man responsible. So she decides that she's going to take some vengeance, and she does an exceptional job. I even just describing it to you now, I want to read this again. It was so good. Queenie Malone's Paradise Hotel, also really good. I remember getting that from the library, and when we got home, it was really cold, so we lit a fire, and I just sat there in front of the fire and read it all in one sitting. But it just gave me like this real hit of nostalgia, and it was really enjoyable. See, like I would consider starting this series if we could get book one, but I'm not going to be diving in at book 21. That would just never happen. So this is set in, I want to say it's in New York, turn of the century, and it's about this girl who was born with 2 hearts. And obviously, this is a time period where anyone with any kind of medical peculiarity was at risk of becoming like a circus act. So her family lie and say that she was a boy. So the doctor obviously figured out that she had 2 hearts, but he was drunk at the time. So everyone just lied and said he was lying and said that it was a boy that was born, and obviously a boy with 1 heart. And so she lives her life as a boy. And it's really about her trying to just stay under the radar while also trying to live her life, and living half of the time as a woman, half the time as a man. And um, she ends up becoming a professional, not necessarily a grave robber, but she's let's say a body procurer. She finds bodies to be used for medical research and things like that. And obviously that's illegal. So somebody, a detective, is on the case and trying to figure out who is doing this. And obviously he is chasing the man, but at the same time he meets the woman. So, and he thinks that they are brother and sister. So it's just really well written. It's really intriguing. It's really original. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm wondering if maybe I should do a video that rounds up some of my favorite Victorian literature, as in like books based in Victorian times rather than things written in Victorian times. Because now that I think of it, I have quite a lot of recommendations because it is an era that I've always loved to read about. So let me know in the comments if that's something that would be of interest to you. The Count of Monte Cristo, that is on my 22 books to read in 2022 list. I'll pop a link to that video in the description if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it is one that I really want to get to. It's very, very long though, very long. Much Ado About You, oh, that takes me back. I read that when I want to say I was like 19, and I was living with my cousin at the time, and we had this series of books, and it was one of those ones where you are so into it that you just have to like read it and then the next one and the next one, and we kept like swapping them, so we were reading them right after each other so we could talk about them, and they were just so captivating, so much fun. I love that they're on Kindle Unlimited now, so everyone can read them. Oh, this is one that I heard Lauren talk about this morning as well, and she really sold it to me. So it's a history of food and class in Britain, and you know I love anything food related, so it really spoke to me. I don't necessarily always love reading things about class divides because, well, to be honest, I find it pretty depressing. But if we're coming at it from the angle of food and class, then maybe it will be a bit more palatable for me. Get it? Palatable. Muse of Nightmares, which is a sequel to Strange the Dreamer, a book that I'm really not interested in reading. I know everyone loves it, but it's just one of those ones where I'm like very meh. Maybe I should do a video on that as well. Maybe I should do like a roundup of really hyped or beloved books that I just don't care about reading. I like the look of that one. Heiresses, The Lives of the $1 Million Babies. That looks like rich people drama, which, as you know, I adore. It is on Kindle Unlimited though, so I'll borrow it through there if I'm going to read it. Ooh. There's no such thing as an easy job. I like that cover, so we'll have a look at that one. Golden Hill. I have that sitting on my bookshelf. Golden Hill. I have that sitting on my bookshelf and I haven't read it yet. But the fact that Richard Oseman says it's his favourite book of the last 5 years is meaningful because I love Richard Oseman. Luna Living by Kirsty Gallagher. I have the like physical book of that because I do like tracking the moon cycles and like living my life in alignment with that. I find it really helpful. That's a striking cover, but I can tell immediately that it's not a book for me. There's another Lisa Kleypas book, so we can have a look at that one. They're both first in the series, so we'll have a look and see which one appears most fun. The Wife Upstairs, I read that last year and enjoyed it. It's a Jane Eyre retelling, which is always a win in my book. I really like that front cover. And it was blurred by Jojo Myers, who writes some of my faves. So we'll definitely give it a little look over. My Mess is a bit of a lie. I've heard people talk about that. But I'm not sure that it's something that I want to read right now. I have been struggling with my anxiety a little bit recently, so I don't necessarily want to get in the mind of somebody who has the same struggles. I want more escape. More Terry Pratchett. There's a lot of Terry Pratchett on this list. The third in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. I haven't read any of those, but I know it's another much beloved one. The Weird Zone of Brisingamen. I remember having to read that at school when I was like 10 or 11. I literally cannot remember a single thing about it, but I remember having to read it. It didn't have that cover though, it had a wizard on the cover. I've heard great things about this one, The Five, which is all about the women who were murdered by Jack the Ripper. I have heard someone say that it's really good via audio though, so I think if I'm going to listen to that, I'll pick up the audiobook. The Lake House, I actually have that sitting on my Kindle already. I have so many books sitting on my Kindle. I need to read more of them. I feel like I've seen this one somewhere and thought it looked really good. So let's have a look at that. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that cover's familiar to me. That one too, but it is on Kindle Unlimited, so I'll wait for now. The Black Flamingo, I read that last year, really, really loved it. So it's a coming of age story written in verse about a young Black man from his birth up until he is at university and entering the world of drag. And it's just really beautifully done. If something says Gothic fairy tale in the subtitle, I'm usually all over it. Oh, I love that cover. I'm just not sure my health and happiness can take stories of human cruelty right now. I would love that cover if it didn't have that stupid sticker on. Why are publishers doing this? Somebody tell me. That seems quite striking. I don't know what it's about. I've never heard of that book. I believe that's a Norwegian author, and I don't think I've ever read anything by a Norwegian author. So I'll definitely look into that. Baking Bad. A cozy mystery with dragons. I can't say no. Again, it's a Kindle Unlimited one, so I'll pick it up for free on that. I certainly do not want to read about disease. I mean, it's never really been my thing, but since the pandemonium, I'm certainly not interested in anything relating to any kind of epidemic or any kind of like dystopian reality. Like that's not what I want to escape into these days. I still need to read the first in this series. I've got it sitting on my bookshelves and I just haven't got to it yet. I'm not the biggest middle grade reader. I think that's what's put me off because the cover is beautiful and the synopsis makes it sound great. I read a book by him last year and it was so appalling I had to DNF it. It's something like it was just vile. It was so rapey. Like I read the first few chapters, and one character was raped by so many different people in so many different settings, and it just seemed so disgusting and so unnecessary. The Feminine Mystique, the classic that sparked a feminist revolution. I've actually never read The Feminine Mystique. Maybe that's one that we should be considering. This is another author that I've read 3 books in his Katie Maguire series and literally detested them. I don't know why I read all 3. I don't know why I didn't stop after one or stop part way into one, because they were deeply offensive. So just to be clear, I'm not going to be purchasing all of these books that we've clicked on here. That's just my shortlist. So I go through every page, pick out the ones that jump out at me, and then I'll go through and I'll read the synopsis and decide what I actually want to buy. Discernment is important, and being selective is important, even if they are bargains. I don't want to just be buying things for the sake of buying things. I've heard good things about this book. I I think I have the audio on hold from the library actually, so I might just listen to that instead of reading it physically. I love that cover. That Rapport is one of the non-fictions that I own that I need to get to. Tiny Beautiful Things, that's really a really good one. So it's by the same woman who wrote Wild, Cheryl Strayed, and it's she used to write an advice column, and it's extracts from that. So it's written more like essays than one long narrative. But I really enjoyed my time reading it. Big Girl, Small Town. I have that sitting on my Kindle, still need to read it. You might be wondering why I'm shopping for books when I keep just talking about things that I already own and haven't read. But I just like buying new books. It adds just like, I don't know, it refreshes my collection. Why am I trying to make excuses for it? Like, I don't like, we're allowed to buy books. Books bring joy, and we all need more joy in our lives. Oh, I know that this is one that I want to read. Love any books that center food, and I know that one definitely does. I've heard a lot of people rave about this one recently, but from the reviews that I've seen, it does seem to be very US focused, which while is not inherently a bad thing, obviously living in the UK, I would probably just want something that was a little bit more universal. I might be wrong about that assumption, so feel free to let me know in the comments if you think it's still worth me reading. Penguin Book of Love Poetry. I would actually love to read that, but I do prefer poetry to be read physically, so like as in a paper book rather than an ebook. Menus that made history. That sounds like fun. That sounds like something I would want to read. In Pieces by Sally Field. I thoroughly enjoyed that memoir because she's been in Hollywood for so long. Um, she had some like really interesting stories to share, and like not just like interesting stories, but like heartbreaking things, like what it was really like, especially back in the day, to be trying to build a career, especially when people had a very set perception of you and what you were capable of. So I did really enjoy that. This is one that I definitely want to read, but it is on KU, so I'll pick it up there. I should be writing down all of these Kindle Unlimited things I'm saying that I'm going to get, because there's no way I will be remembering all of these. No way at all. Let's just hope that if I'm meant to read them, I will come across them again. There's a lot of Terry Goodkind books on this list. I'm sure that's like the third or the fourth that I've seen. I'm going to have a look at the synopsis for this one. I've never read any Nora Roberts, but Mara from books like Woe loves her so much that I feel like she started to plant seeds in my mind about reading some of her books. Mixtape by Jane Sanderson. I loved that book. It was so good. It I want to say that there are two timelines. One is current day and one is the 70s. I want to say 70s, 80s. It's either late 70s or early 80s. And it tells a story of this like teenage boy and teenage girl who started going out with each other. They live in Sheffield. They come from very different backgrounds. So she has a very difficult family life, and he has this very secure family life. And so they do come from these different worlds, but they have this connection. And then one day she disappears. She leaves town and just like abandons him in their relationship. And then we're seeing the story 20 years later as they sort of accidentally reconnect on Twitter. Um, and it's all to do with music because they made this mixtape, or he made her a mixtape back in the day. And the songs that they keep sharing on Twitter is really helping them tap into that nostalgia and the way that they used to feel. I mean, they've both moved on, they have families, they have partners, but it's really about exploring what happened at that time and like potentially recapturing that love or seeing if that love has evolved into something else. There were definitely some parts that I would suggest looking at trigger warnings for, but it was beautifully written. It was so compelling. It just creates this real sense of nostalgia. It's one of my, I would say it's one of my favorite romances. It's very, very good. And it's not one that I hear many people talk about. But then I think a lot of the romances that are most popular are, you know, like young, beautiful people, whereas this is very much a story of like people in their 40s, which the older I get, the more I appreciate. I certainly do not want to read a book about calculus. I've left all maths related interest at school, and I have no interest in recapturing that. You'll notice that I very much judge books by their covers. I'm not spending a lot of time going through all of these. I'm just scrolling and clicking on the things that capture my attention. So that might be because of the title, it might be because of the cover, it might be because I've heard somebody else talk about it. No rhyme or reason. Queens of the Underworld, that sounds fun. God, look at this. I would love this cover if it wasn't for not one, not two, not three, but four stupid stickers. You're right. I am outraged. I'm outraged by the book stickers. Oh, I like that cover. I think that is one of the, yeah, it's one of the Amazon original stories. So it is on Kindle Unlimited. I've read a couple of the, are we calling them novellas or short stories? Whatever. They're mini books. I've read a few of the mini books, and that's not like that particular series, but in the sort of under the umbrella of Amazon Shorts, and enjoyed everything that I've read so far. I do love what I've read from Jocelyn Jackson. I read her book Gods in Alabama a few years ago and really, really enjoyed it. I think I have another of her books sitting in my Audible, All My Sisters, so I'm going to give that a go. But just remember really loving her writing style. Oh, this one was a favourite of mine at the time too. The Mermaid Sister by Carrianne Noble. I really enjoyed that. And I remember thinking at the time, not only did I enjoy it, like my reading experience, but it's one that I would want to purchase physically and read to my future children. This book is on my list to read as well, but again, it's a KU book, so I will come to it later. And I'll remember that one because it is actually on my wish list. True Love In and Out of the Kitchen. It is a KU one, but I'm really feeling books about food at the moment, so it's a KU one I am going to borrow ASAP. Love, Revenge and Buttered Scones. Oh, I love a scone. I can't have scones anymore because I can't eat gluten anymore, and it's a really sad time. I'm yet to find any gluten-free scones. Maybe something. Okay, we are on our last page and we're done. Okay, so you can see that I've got lots of tabs that I've opened here. So now what I'm going to do is go through each of those individually. I'm going to read the synopsis and decide if it's something that I want to pick up. I am not one of those people who will just buy something without knowing what it's about, because I have a fairly good understanding of my own preferences, of my own taste, and I want to be picking up books that I'm confident I will like. So we will do that process together, but before we get there, I'm going to hit pause and go and grab myself a cup of tea because I've already finished this one and talking to you guys is thirsty work. Okay, so we are back and hydrated. The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Haller. On a perfect August morning, Elle Bishop heads out for a swim in the pond below the Paper Palace, her family's holiday home in Cape Cod. As she dives beneath the water, she relives the passionate encounter she had the night before against the side of the house that knows all her darkest secrets, while her husband and mother chatted to their guests inside. So begins a story that unfolds over 24 hours and 50 years as Elle's shocking betrayal leads her to a life-changing decision. I think this is going to be one of the ones that we go for because I've heard such great things about it. Everyone that I've heard talk about this book literally couldn't put it down. So I'm expecting good things. Welcome to Your Life by Bethany Rutter. Okay, so it is about a woman who walks away from her own wedding because she wants to find real love and goes on, so sets out to do 52 dates in 52 weeks. I've heard that this is also a plus size heroine, which is nice to see in a romance because that very rarely happens. This one's a solid maybe too. The Once and Future Witches. The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. This is definitely something that I want to read at some point, but I'm not necessarily in the slow, beautiful, melancholic, witchy book mood right now. So we will say goodbye to this one for the moment. Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I'm not sure this is really written for me. I'm not the biggest fan of coming of age stories, and by the look of it, that's very much what this is. I think these days I just prefer to read books about slightly older characters. So we'll say not for now to this one. The Editor's Wife. Do you know what? I already own another book by this author, and I'm going to read that before buying any others, just so that I can be certain I like their writing style. I don't want to be that person who just buys an author's entire body of work without knowing whether they even enjoy it just because the covers are pretty. So that's the same with Breathing Lessons by Anne Tyler. So I own one of her books already. And so I'm going to say no to this one until I know that I like her writing style. Other People's Clothes. A sparkling debut. 2009, Berlin. Two art students arrive from New York, both desperate for the city to solve their problems. Zoe is grieving for her high school best friend murdered months before in her hometown in Florida. Haley is rich, obsessed with the exploits of Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears, and wants to be a Warholian legend. Together, they rent a once magnificent apartment from eccentric crime writer Beatrice Becks. With little to fill their time, they spend their nights twisting through Berlin's club scene and their days hungover. Soon, inexplicable things start happening in the apartment, and the two friends suspect they are being watched by Beatrice. Convinced that their landlord is using their lives as inspiration for her next thriller novel, they decide to beat her at her own game. The girls start hosting wild parties in the flat and quickly gain notoriety, with everyone clamoring for an invite to Beatrice's. But ultimately, they find themselves unable to control the narrative, and it spirals into much darker territory. Ooh, that sounds a bit good, doesn't it? Okay, that one's a keeper. Breasts and Eggs by Miko Kawakami. I'm not getting the vibes from this one. And I don't know if it's just because I've seen a different cover for it and I liked that more. Because that doesn't really matter at all when it's an ebook, but there's something about it that's just, I don't know, it's giving me like sad, depressing, melancholic, women in hardship kind of vibes, and yeah, no thank you for now. Sunny by Suk Ojla. Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. I think I'm going to get that. This one looks really good to me. So it immediately gives me like grown-up Bend It Like Beckham vibes. And I don't know if I've just got that on the brain because I rewatched it the other night, but yeah, I like the look of that one. By the way, I didn't mention this. I'm trying to get this list to 10 books. So I don't want to purchase more than 10 new books here. Never Saw Me Coming. I already know that this one is on my wish list. So it's about a young woman who is part of a clinical study of psychopaths run by her university. And then I know that like some murders start happening on the campus, and yeah, it's already on my wish list, so we're keeping that on the short list for now. The Haven by Amanda Jennings. Never heard of this book, never heard of the author, but it did look like it was going to be culty. I'm gonna add this to the shortlist for now, but I'm not 100% set on it, just because I know that we've got some other good things coming. I'm not feeling that. That just looks very like basic enemies to lovers holiday romance kind of thing. Oh, this one was one of the KU choices. Jane Eyre Meets the Woman in Black. Sounds a bit of all right, doesn't it? But like I said, it's a Kindle Unlimited pick, so I'll pick that up at some time in the future. Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. I just don't think I'm in that kind of mood, to be honest. I do want to try her books at some point, but yeah, just not grabbing me. I do really like the look of this one. I'll keep that on the shortlist for the moment. Heiresses, The Lives of the $1 Million Babies. I really do like the look of that one, and I think I will read it at some point, but because it's a KU choice, I will come back to it at a later date. There's no such thing as an easy job. I mean, it does look quite fun. It looks kind of like irreverent and strange. I think I want to read it at some point, but it's not like calling to me to do so immediately. So for now, we will remove it from the list. Another Lisa Kleypas. So this one is Someone to Watch Over Me. I do like the sound of that one, but I'm just not feeling it for right now. I think because I'm now thinking about the Eloisa James books that I loved so much. Nothing else sounds like it's going to be better. As in, like, no other Regency romance. Already that's a no. I'm not into books about children. Last 10 standing. Yeah, I've definitely seen this somewhere before. Maybe I saw it in the library app. Yes, I did. I saw it in the library app. So if I do feel like reading this, I'm gonna borrow it from the library. The Shadow in the Glass. That gothic fairy tale subtitle hooked me in. Okay, a smouldering, terrifying new spin on Cinderella. Interesting. That's a maybe, I think. The History of Bees. Let's have a look. In the spirit of Station 11 and Never Let Me Go, this dazzling and ambitious literary debut follows 3 generations of beekeepers from the past, present, and future, weaving a spellbinding story of their relationship to the bees and to their children and one another against the backdrop of an urgent global crisis. So we have England 1851, United States 2007, and China 2098. I do not have the bandwidth for another urgent global crisis, so we're going to say no, thank you. Baking Bad, that was a KU one. I'm just going to borrow that right away because it just sounds so whimsical and fun. The Feminine Mystique, widely credited with inspiring second wave feminism, blah, 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 blah. I think this is one of those books that I should definitely read before I die, but I'm not necessarily feeling particularly compelled to dive into it right away. So for now, we'll just say bye-bye. The Gender Games, I think this is the one I have on hold at the library. So yeah, so I'm gonna read it through the library app. With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I love stories about single parents. I love anything that centers around food. So it does tick both of those boxes. Menus that made history, over 2,000 years of menus from ancient Egyptian food for the afterlife to Elvis Presley's wedding breakfast. That just sounds like it's going to be really entertaining. I do love a witchy book, but I don't know. I'm not sure that's where I want to start with my Nora Roberts experimentation. I've heard Mara talk about different books that appeal to me more, so I think I would opt for one of those if I did want to dabble with this author. Dust. Okay, yeah, I'm not particularly interested in reading books about groups of boys. It's not my thing. Feast, True Love in and Out of the Kitchen. Okay, I'm going to borrow this now from Kindle Unlimited. Okay, so let's see how many we managed to reduce that to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like 10 was my limit, so I'm feeling pretty pleased about that. Nice job, Dara. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just quickly purchase these, and then we're going to look at the Amazon first for this month and see which book I can grab for free. Okay, so this is the Amazon First Reads page. So let's have a look at what is available. So in psychological thriller, we have Under Her Care by Lucinda Berry. In book club fiction, we have The Vanishing Tide by Hilary Taylor. In domestic suspense, we have The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. In thriller, we have The Man Burned by Winter by Pete Zacharias. In romance, we have West Side Love Story by Priscilla Oliveras. Historical fiction, we have Last Summer Boys by Bill Rivers. In women's fiction, we have The Candid Life of Meena Dave by Namrata Patel. Alternate history, we have The Peacekeeper by Bl Blanchard. And children's picture book, we have Thursday by Anne Bonwell. So if you've never had an Amazon First Reads book before, you should know that the genres don't stay the same every month, so they do mix those up a little bit, but you usually do have a choice of around 9 books, and you can just pick one to have for free. And typically they're all books that haven't been released yet, which is fun too. So let's have a little look at, I mean, I don't usually look at all of them because I can tell by looking at something if it's going to be of interest to me or not. But for the sake of this video, let's have a little look at the full selection. It's not going to be the picture book, so we'll leave that one there. Okay, Under Her Care by Lucinda Berry. On a humid summer day in Alabama, a mayor's wife turns up brutally murdered under a railroad bridge. Standing next to her body is 14-year-old Mason Hill, the autistic son of former Miss USA Genevieve Hill. The locals are quick to level their verdict on young Mason. He did it. The town detective calls in local autism expert Casey Walker to consult on the case. At first, Casey tries to keep an open mind, but the more time she spends with Genevieve, the more her unease grows, and she suspects that Genevieve is doing more than just protecting her son. Casey's misgivings surrounding Genevieve's story only intensify when she meets Savannah, Genevieve's 19-year-old daughter. Savannah, as it turns out, has some disturbing secrets of her own, but as Casey dives even deeper into the Hill family dynamic, her search for the truth leads to another shocking murder, one that shatters her understanding of the human condition in ways she never imagined. So that sounds pretty good. Okay, let's look at the next one. The Vanishing Tide by Hilary Taylor. Isla knows her family kept things from her. When she inherits the cliffside cottage where she spent her childhood, she must face dark shadows of her past. The mother who rejected her in favour of her art, the aunt whose death haunted them both, and the silence that permeated every room. Digging through the belongings of someone she realises she never really knew, Isla finally has the chance to find answers to the secrets her mother spent a lifetime hiding. But lies can't be swept away by the tide, and when Isla crosses paths with a mother and young daughter visiting her remote hometown, she becomes entangled in their family secrets too, forcing her to wonder whether the truth she is seeking will really set her free. I mean, that sounds pretty good as well. The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. Emma loves her husband Leo and their young daughter Ruby. She'd do anything for them, but almost everything she's told them about herself is a lie. And she might just have got away with it if it weren't for her husband's job. Leo is an obituary writer and Emma is a well-known marine biologist. So when she suffers a serious illness, Leo copes by doing what he knows best, reading and writing about her life. But as he starts to unravel her past, he discovers the woman he loves doesn't really exist. Even her name is fictitious. When the very darkest moments of Emma's past finally emerge, she must somehow prove to Leo that she really is the woman he always thought she was. But first, she must tell him about the love of her other life. Ooh. That is a solid contender. Wasn't expecting that. The Man Burned by Winter by Pete Zacharias. Still reeling from a personal tragedy, investigative journalist Rutter Lindstrom finds a grim hideaway from the world. It's the dilapidated cabin on Minnesota's Deer Lake bequeathed to him by his late father, one of the most notorious serial killers in the state. If the walls of this murder house could talk, they'd scream. Detective Tess Harlow needs something from Rutter only he can provide, a window into the mind of a murderer. A copycat is on the prowl, following in the footsteps of Rutter's father. After reluctantly agreeing to take on the role of consultant, Rutter makes a chilling discovery. Every victim, 5 and counting, is a depraved taunt meant only for him. Rutter is not just tracking a killer playing sick games. In this brutal Minnesota winter, Rutter is confronting his past. That sounds good too. Usually there aren't so many that I'm interested in. So this is the one that I thought was going to be my big fat yes. 2 familiars in Texas, both alike in dignity, rivalries, and passion. Having grown up in the nurturing household of Casa Capuleta, Mariana will do anything for familia, To solve her adoptive parents' financial problems amid their rapidly changing San Antonio comunidad, Mariana and her younger sisters are determined to win the battle of the mariachi bands. And that means competing against Hugo Montero, their father's arch nemesis, and his band, and escalating a decades-old feud. It also raises the stakes of Mariana's forbidden attraction for a certain dark-eyed mariachi who sets her heart racing. To Angelo Montero's familia, Mariana is also strictly off-limits, but that doesn't stop him from pursuing her. As their secret affair intensifies and the competition grows fierce, they're swept up in a brewing storm of betrayals, rivalries, and broken ties. Against the odds, they vow to bring peace, but sacrifices must be made and consequences weighed for two star-crossed lovers to make beautiful music together. So that was the one I thought I would be most interested in, but I'm not so sure now. Like, it sounds good, but it doesn't sound quite as good as a couple of the others. Last Summer Boys by Bill Rivers. If you're famous, you don't have to go to war. Summer 1968, when 13-year-old Jack Elliott overhears the barbershop men grousing, he devises a secret plan to keep his oldest brother Pete from the draft. If famous boys don't go to war, he'll make his brother their small town's biggest celebrity. Jack gets unexpected help when his book-smart cousin Frankie arrives in their rural Pennsylvania town for the summer. Together, they convince Jack's brothers to lead an expedition to find a fighter jet that crashed many winters ago. The perfect adventure to make Pete a hero. But with a greedy developer determined to flood their valley, a beautiful girl occupying his middle brother's attentions, a wild motorcycle gang causing trouble in town, and a disturbed neighbour setting fires, Jack realises it isn't just Pete who needs saving. I'm not sure that's quite my bag. I'm not one for stories about groups of boys. It's just not my bag. The Candid Life of Meena Dave by Namrata Patel. Meena Dave is a photojournalist and a nomad. She has no family, no permanent address, and no long-term attachments, preferring to observe the world at a distance through the lens of her camera. But Meena's solitary life is turned upside down when she unexpectedly inherits an apartment in a Victorian brownstone in historic Back Bay at Boston. Though Meena's impulse is to sell it and keep moving, she decides to use her journalistic instinct to follow the story that landed her in the home of a stranger. It's a mystery that comes with a series of hidden clues, a trio of meddling Indian aunties, and a handsome next-door neighbour. For Meena, it's a chance for newfound friendships, community, and culture she never thought possible, and a window into her past she never expected. That one sounds fun. Last but not least, we have The Peacekeeper by Bl Blanchard. North America was never colonized. The United States and Canada don't exist. The Great Lakes are surrounded by an independent Ojibwe nation, and in the village of Bawutigong, a peacekeeper confronts his devastating past. 20 years ago to the day, Chibinashi's mother was murdered and his father confessed. Ever since, caring for his still traumatized younger sister has been Chibinashi's privilege and penance. Now, on the same night of the Manuman harvest, another woman is slain, his mother's best friend. This leads to a seemingly impossible connection that takes Chibinashi far from the only world he's ever known. The major city of Chicago is home to the victim's cruelly estranged family and to two people Chibinashi never wanted to see again: his imprisoned father and the lover who broke his heart. As the questions mount, the answers will change his and his sister's lives forever, because Chibinashi is about to discover that everything about their lives has been a lie. I mean, it sounds good. It doesn't necessarily sound like something that's super me, but it sounds interesting. Okay, we're going to have to narrow this down because we can only pick one. So we're going to let that one go. We're going to let Under Her Care go. We're going to let The Vanishing Tide go. This one is a solid maybe. This one is a solid maybe. We're going to let West Side Love Story go. We're going to let Last Summer Boys go. And I think we're going to let The Candid Life of Meena Dave go as well. Okay, so we are torn between The Love of My Life and The Man Burned by Winter. The Love of My Life The Man Bun by Winter. There we go. Decision made. So there you have it, friends. A fab, fun little digital book haul. I would love to hear from you in the comments if you have read any of the books that I purchased today. Do you have a recommendation for where I should start? Let me know. Obviously, don't leave any spoilers, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to love you and leave you. Have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you in my next upload.